Good evening. Today is Thursday, August 10th, 2017. The time is 7:11 p.m. or 1911. This is the monthly meeting of the Beech Grove Redevelopment Commission. And starting, I'd ask our members starting to my right to introduce themselves.
Yeah, Bell.
Kathy Chappell, Secretary.
Ron Moat, Vice President.
Jay Oswald.
And Donald Webb, I am the president. Our first order of business would be to approve July's minutes. I'd first ask if there was any questions, concerns, or corrections on that. And if not, I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes as submitted by Kathy.
Make said motion.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The minutes are approved. The next thing we will knock out is the payment of bills. We, for this month, have a grand total of $261,132. We have our sewer bill for $15, Crossroads Engineering for $11,500. That is for the Greenway. The RDC has agreed to help the city of Beech Grove in development of the Greenway. $645 for our part of the mayor's asking for weed control and keeping up the common area and keeping Beech Grove beautiful. Also $1,275, that's also part of it on a different part, and $200. So there's three different parts that were bid on and separate, but we agreed to cover half of those three parts. Lewis Caps, we have one for $546 and one for $26. That's Robert, our attorney, who helps us and is at our meetings. And then the big ones are Regions Bank and Trust, $750 for the bond fee, $26,160 for the interest, $220,000 on the principal payment. And then the final one is another Beech Grove City Sewer Works. We get a monthly sewer bill of $15 for what, I'm not sure, but we get one. So with that, if there are any questions, I'll take them. If not, I again would ask for a motion to approve the bills as read.
I'll make said motion.
I'd ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the bills are approved. We'll get signatures. And then we had mentioned back in, was it May? About possibly working on a plan to spruce up the I-465 Emerson interchange to give Beech Grove more visibility and a positive look. And tonight, the gentlemen, which I will ask to introduce themselves, are here to discuss those plans. So we're kind of excited to see what you have.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Kevin Parsons Associates. With me tonight is John Lapp from the company, and our new employee just graduated from Urban Design School Master Program, David McCarroll.
Welcome.
He's actually kind of a neighbor. He lives over in Fountain Square area. He can almost walk here if he tried, so. We just got him working full-time here a month ago, so that's why we missed your last meeting. We had to play catch-up for a minute, but we're happy to be here tonight. If you remember our first meeting, when you hired us, I guess, you don't have this in your packet, which, you want to hand those packets out, David or John? I've got the last sheet with them, the four right there in the corner. We've got the boards you're going to see in your packets, but we're so far away from you, we figure you need to see them a little closer. And there's one sheet that we didn't get in the packet, but if you remember, and we kind of identified the four quadrants of the interchange, which is what we're looking at, obviously. We had like 6 pieces. We're discussing those particular areas. I only had 4 out, there's 5 people. I'm sorry about that, Dave.
That's okay. Thank you, sir.
And this is really our first discussion in developing the whole gateway entry feature for the city at the interchange. What we've realized since we've last met, that of all of 465 around the entire city of Indianapolis, there is no gateway. This will be the first, you're looking at the first opportunity here. There's a few incidental arches out at 71st, 79th, 86th Street, but they're not really gateways. There's no community name, there's no community pride. They don't really identify a community where you're making the effort to identify Beech Grove here. So you're really kind of setting a precedent, if you will, especially if we move forward. It also turns out your particular interchange is a little more challenging than we really thought it was going to be until we got out there and started looking at it. There's quite a bit of little factors that's going to influence what we do and what we recommend to you. Like most interchanges, if you've ever been out on one on foot, out of a car, they're pretty relentless. The traffic's relentless. Drivers are fast, they're noisy, they're dangerous. They don't care about you. When they stop at the stoplight, they're pretty friendly, but the rest of the time, they're not at all. And that's not going to really impede our design, but it'll be part of the implementation process. If we build anything, it's going to be one of the big factors. This particular interchange is pretty limited space. On the packet we gave you, what we're calling the gateway opportunities, I think is your first sheet. Kind of identifies, up on Emerson, we have kind of the high traffic zone there at the Diamond intersection there at the stoplight. The eastbound and westbound lanes of the main line of 465 are the arrows, the orange arrows. Shows the bridge face wall, which is a kind of a partial hexagonal bridge, if you will, instead of a straight face bridge. We have the 4 grass areas up at the Emerson Avenue elevation that's apparently maintained by the city of Beech Grove, and they're actually pretty nice. In fact, if you drive around the entire 465, you'll never see 4 grass areas like that mowed and maintained on a frequent basis. That actually kind of looks like my front yard, so we do compliment the city on that. It's a pretty rare thing to see. But they're also drainage basins. They all go down. They have inlets in the bottom. They're pretty deep, 6, 8, 10 feet deep in spots, I think. So they're kind of a depression, if you will. The vegetation that surrounds both sides of the interchange, north and south, are up against the private property lines, are kind of wild, unmaintained, invasive species, but they're also going to be extremely hard to even try to remove or try to maintain. So that's a factor we're also going to be looking at. The non-symmetrical shape of the bridge is part of our challenge here. We're going to be talking about tonight. And then if you look at the upper right-hand, actually it's on the next sheet, the opportunity sheet. There's 4 high-mast light poles out there that NDOT has to light up the intersection. They're occupied kind of on various locations on the 4 corners of the interchange. So vertically, they're going to be a challenge to deal with to be able to focus visibility on your interchange. There's a radio TV tower on that northeast quadrant up on the area that you mow and maintain. And then there's overhead power lines on the west side of Emerson as you go north and south up, at the stoplight. I mean, it runs from north to south over the interchange also. So we do have some overhead utilities. And visibility really from the 465 main line, when you're eastbound, you start getting a pretty good view pretty far back. You can start seeing the exit, the interchange, and you're coming up. Eastbound, your people are flying around the curve at minimum 65, 70. And if there's a truck in your way, you hardly see the interchange till you're on it. But if you have clear view, you almost have to get back past the McAllister Machinery rental place before you really start seeing the interchange. So it's pretty tight and quick when you're westbound on that north lane there. And all that is going to have an impact if we get to kind of a construction and a full-time maintenance of the gateway. So with those things in mind, we think the challenge is very accomplishable. And many of you probably know the gateways are, to identify the community, identify the city. I mean, that's really what they're kind of about. They're not just decoration. They're not just beautification. They're really to make an impact, a visual impact, that this is Beech Grove, this is where we live. We want your business, stop in, spend your money. It also kind of relays the character of the community, being clean. If you maintain the interchange, they're gonna think the community's clean. There's a lot of inherent little relationships there. So we think we should make a statement here, not just decorate, not just make it look pretty, but make a design statement, make an impact, and it should have some relevance to history, whether it's historical or philosophical or represents business and industry that's located there. There should be some relevant relationship besides just saying, look what we did. Isn't it nice? So that's what we're kind of aiming for here as we discuss this with you. We also think that the gateway should be kind of a unique design, innovative, creative, but they also have to be buildable, and most importantly, they have to be maintainable. If you don't maintain them, You've seen what's happened. You've tried landscape improvements through I-70 and other places that look great on day one. After the maintenance doesn't occur, they go downhill very quickly, and it shows. But what we want people to do when they drive through here is say, yeah, that was the Beech Grove exit. I'm stopping there next time, or I'm turning around. I'm going back to that Beech Grove exit. And that's what we're after. So any gateway, no matter where you do it, basically there's some form of monumentation, there's some form of signage, generally some form of lighting, and usually plant materials to help support and frame that. There's frequently even art and/or sculpture, but in many cases, in most cases, you can integrate art with your signage, with your monumentation, with your lighting, and in some cases, even your plant materials. So we're hoping to focus all that into a gateway element, utilizing most of those materials, or at least the concepts itself. So if we go to page 2 on the handout, I'm sorry to all the folks who can't see the handout, but we're calling this gateway analysis or opportunity. I guess this was the opportunity map, yeah. The photo in the right-hand corner does show you those high-mast light towers that are there. They're going to be kind of in your face, so whatever we do, we're going to have these competing visual vertical elements there. We've identified, the overall main focus area, the primary focus, right at the crossover of the interchange. But with the exit ramps being eastbound and westbound, we're seeing a secondary focal areas really at the top of the exit ramps where you meet Emerson Avenue, where those green areas are that you mow so well. So seeing those as secondaries. The views back from, as I mentioned earlier, the east and the west, very strong from the west, a little weaker and late coming in from the east. And of course, the existing vegetation also mentioned. If you want to go to the next page, we'll just jump right into some concepts here. I think concept 1 should be up first. And these are all plan view. We'll show you some vertical elevation things here in a minute, but what we tried to do here, based on our analysis and where we think the focal points are, we're showing a couple of proposals in one drawing. In this particular case, we would see a bridge sign following the hexagonal shape of the bridge when you're seeing it from 465 itself. Height, color, but it says Beech Grove. Welcome to Beech Grove. There's something there that says Beech Grove. We feel that's very important when you're driving from either direction. Identify down on the main line, because your exit ramps are so high that if you don't do something down there, you're not going to be able to see it. Yep.
Would that be lighted?
We'll certainly recommend it be lighted, yeah. Yeah, we'll get into a little more details later on some of the elements. I'm kind of giving the basic concept first, and then we'll move forward. But we also think that on the eastbound, where the ramp is, that lower green belt, if you will, that we identified earlier, it's kind of, years ago they tried to plant it and it was a failure. It's really kind of growing up wild now. On this particular scheme, we're looking at maybe using paver panels, and making a solid, it's going to be sloped, but kind of a solid wall that doesn't have plant material, very easy to maintain, and introducing some low lights that light the wall up, if you will. So when you're driving down the interstate, you see the wall, you start seeing some lights lit up, and whether we have a sign in front of you or not, this is at least telling you this is something special, something different as you're driving by on 465. We do that in both directions with that skinny green belt that had the previously failed plant material. And with those low, we're calling them knuckle lights here because they wouldn't be higher than your knee or your thigh. You wouldn't see the direct light in your face. They'd have a cap on them, but it would spread the light out on the stone wall. In tandem with that, as you're, again, eastbound coming up the ramp, we would start introducing some vertical column-type lights that would also lead you up to the top of the interchange. So we're looking at a bridge face sign, maybe some stone and low lights, maybe some upright lights. Like I said, we blended several things into one scheme here. Whether you want to build them all or not will be decided later, but we're trying to show you what the opportunities might be. When you get to the top, then we could also have a monument at the top that says Beech Grove, welcome to Beech Grove. And it's not for the passersby on I-465, it's really for those that arrive. It also can be seen from Emerson as well as the exits. Then the 4 green triangles could be planted, terrace planted, shrub planted, ground cover, perennials. There's a lot of opportunity for additional planting there. As I mentioned earlier, the way you mow it and maintain it looks pretty good now, but we were just trying to be maybe adding a little additional features. The other 2 green sides, the north and the south, which are both east and west, we could put a tree grove in. Unfortunately, we could never get a beech tree to live out there. We could call it Beech Grove. We could maybe paint the trunks gray to look like beech trees, but we could have some tree groves out there, and they could be maintainable. And they could look better than what's there today, because obviously nothing's maintained much out there today. As I mentioned earlier, the roofless environment out here is everything gets beat, it gets wind, it gets salt, gets trash. So everything that's put out here has to be pretty hardy. It's got to be built well if it's going to last, and it's going to get abused one way or another. So it's why that constant maintenance is always required on anything like this. So that's kind of the overview there on concept 1. If you're going to turn the page to concept 2.
Question before you go on.
Sure.
And it was just about the lighting, because I think the lighting, I like the idea of the lighting and I like the lighting, but my question is, you pointed out those huge light towers. Won't those kill or drown out the effect to make this lighting less effective?
Well, there's a yes and a no. The tall mast lights are high-pressure sodium, which are that brown, hazy, makes you feel like you're in a dream when you're driving through them. We'd be proposing LED lights with a higher Kelvin rating, if you will, that's a little brighter and whiter. So you'll still have that effect coming down, but it's going to be like an overall light coming down. And then any lighting we'd introduce would be more of a local, brighter, focused light. But the competition will be there, we can't deny that, but totally different color and a different effect.
Got the highway lights to make it look better.
I don't know, the gentleman from Crossroads can correct me. I think a few years ago, NDOT was talking about taking all the high masts down. Well, they didn't, and they're still there, and they're still using them, so I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but it's a pretty efficient way to light up an interchange, but nobody really likes them much, to my knowledge. But yeah, and the high-pressure sodium is just not a real attractive color at times, especially when it's foggy. We've got a vocabulary sheet that shows some lighting possibilities. We'll discuss it in a minute. I want to get through the plans first, and we'll kind of get into some other details. We can jump back to the plans. But if we go back to concept 2, this particular layout, they're both similar. We're both utilizing the same spaces, but here we're looking at a rounded sign at the bridge face. It actually follows the hex instead of being tight and following the hex. This is rounded, so you don't see any seam or any corner. There will be some vertical element to it. On the exit ramp, the exit ramps, instead of a monument up high all the way up to Emerson, we could look at one partially the way up the ramp that actually spans both exits, your right turn and your left. You're going under it, if you will, and that's from both directions, the eastbound and the westbounds. Now on this one, we're not showing the stone or the paver side slopes. We're showing just vegetation with a very easily maintainable vegetation, but we're showing more of the light poles like we showed on the up part of the ramp earlier, which we still have on this particular concept also. And that's from both directions. So we're kind of duplicating in a symmetrical way, if you will. We're still showing the tree groves on those larger green areas. Got a different pattern, a little less trees than we showed here, a little spaced out a little more. And then we've just shown kind of a shrub hedge around those green triangle areas without making beds out of it. So very simple, fairly sophisticated in a simple way. But different. And the key is, we could build the bridge signs and not do the side monuments. We could theoretically do the side monuments, not the bridge sign. We could do some of the vegetation, not all of it. We can mix from this plan to that plan, but we wanted to kind of get all of it out there without dragging it out in 4 or 5 different plans for you and confuse you even worse. So the elements are kind of all on here, and we can menu shop it once you digest it all, because we're not really expecting a final recommendation tonight for which direction we should go, but we got a little more to discuss here. If you go ahead and turn the page to the next sheet, Dave and John did draw up some elevations of some potential signs that would go on the bridge. The left side are the plan view for the curved bridge, if you will, signs. And it could show Beech Grove with either translucent or perforated stainless steel, backlit, front lit, aluminum, variety of methods. And the sign would curve in, but it would also curve up. So in the center line of the 2 eastbound, westbound lanes, it would be about 16, 18 feet tall. By the time you tapered back around, it would be the 4-foot height as your concrete railing is. So basically, you're curving in 2 directions, if you will, vertically and horizontally. So the curve itself becomes part of the plan, for the sign vertically as well as the bend in it. So, and that would be the plan on concept 2. We did put the Ballon back. For those that didn't hear us earlier, we've had easel problems. That's why Crossroads came and brought all their easels. Here, thanks.
There's the second empty.
Easily fixed.
There you go.
Thank you. So again, that's the curve sign. The ones on the right would be the hex, and the sign's designed to kind of have a smaller face and then a large face in the middle that pops up in a couple different options there. And none of these are the final option. These are just study options to give you an idea how we're thinking, what direction we thought we were going, and can always be adjusted.
I'll tell you what, I like the steel mesh and black for the curved one, like the second one down, and then on the right side, I love the first and the third one as well. I think the third one on the straight sign is really good, and I mean, something like that would definitely catch people's attention as they're going around 465. You couldn't help but notice it, and I mean, they just, from this thing, they look very inviting even. I mean,
Did you get the numbers on that?
Up the city.
I like the one.
You got it? Well, thanks. Now, the ones on the right, are kind of modeled after the old train shed look. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, yeah, the pin yard.
And we've got a sketch at the very back, the loose sketch, are also some renditions of utilizing that train shed look. And
Were you talking this one here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, that's not for the bridge. That would be the monument up on
Right,
top.
and that's what I was getting ready to
That'd be where
say.
you drive
Where you
under.
were talking about the little triangles of
Yeah.
where we mow. I think that would be awesome.
I do
Right there at the front. I think that really looks nice. I mean, that would look just, that's nice.
And what we did, we kind of used the train sheds themselves, and then I don't know, David, did you design the original streetscape monuments out here? Yeah. Really along those same lines of following that theme from what you've done downtown, take it all the way out to the interstate. Beg your pardon?
I'm talking to
Oh. Well, we'll give him credit tonight, otherwise no more. We're going to change it just enough. It's not his. But we didn't know if the community really wanted to keep the whole train theme as the community moves forward or not. This day and age. So, it could be very important, and you've kind of utilized that modified shed look downtown, and that's really what those 2 monuments were emulating. And the signs you mentioned on this side also have that same
That's
overall structural
I think
look.
that's why it's attracted to them,
Yeah.
because, it's a nice tie-in.
Yeah, and that was kind of the intent. I mean, a lot of detail and refinement to do, but it ties it in pretty good. And that really fits the hex bridge without doing the curve thing, so easier attachment.
Right.
Could be done in pieces, so we don't have to shut the entire interstate down on a Saturday and Sunday night, irritate 20,000 drivers. That's a joke, but there's some reality to it, unfortunately. And if the sign's put up in pieces, a lot of times it can be put up on top side instead of bottom side, where it makes a big difference, so. And then the next sheet, the design vocabulary, this really, we don't have any specific designs that we're proposing here, but it's some of the ideas that what we are proposing, we could utilize some of what's been done. For instance, one of the interesting elements here on the lower corner, this is actually a high transmission line tower that has a wrap around it, so it's not painted, and you could actually say, City of Beech Grove, maybe out here on the high mast lot things, very simply and very affordably. Not that we don't want to do the gateway, but I mean, it's additional decoration or additional art, if you will. And there's a variety of, other lights and sculptures. The downtown Beech Grove Towers is down there in the little photograph in the bottom center, if you see that. And some of the perforated metal examples are on the right side of the sheet. All those, some of them are painted, but they're still the perforated metal, stainless. I don't think any of those are translucent plastics, are they? They're all stainless, yeah. And then some of the vertical lights are kind of right there in the middle left, with a little bitty photograph, similar to what we were proposing maybe to use on the exit ramps.
Yeah, I like those.
Yeah.
Those would be really sharp.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's kind of the overview of where we're at on this very preliminary stage. And again, we didn't expect total recommendation on which way we should move from here. I mean, it's our intent now, we'll focus more on the direction, instead of looking at variety of things, we kind of start focusing down. I mean, we did look at some ballpark, very conceptual budgetary discussions on some of these elements that we don't know how public we want to go with, but it's...
And I'll tell you what, looking at your designs and stuff, I almost feel like, when do we start? Because I mean, it's to me, it's,
Well, in that case, it was how many million? Is that-
yeah. Well, I mean, it's just, you look and you see the sign concepts and the design and you just, I think about communities that have it, and I do think these types of things are a draw, and it enhances the brand of Beech Grove, and to me, it enhances the value of the community, and it draws people here. I mean, these are inviting. I guess to me, the biggest thing I'd worry about is maintenance.
Yeah.
Because if you let it get run down, then people think your community's run down. So it's one of those things that we definitely have to commit to providing yearly maintenance, whether it be plants and shrubs, to make sure. Because I mean, I guess my prime example is I look at the roundabouts, because we go up through Carmel to Westfield all the time, and how well they're maintained, and the signs and the plantings and stuff like that. And I mean, I guess that's, to me, the only thing I worry about on some of these is, I like the idea of your pavers, because to me, that's a lower cost. It may be a higher cost to put in, but a lower cost to maintain.
Yeah, and you're exactly right.
And I guess that's what I would be looking at in terms of design is, I like plants and shrubs, but to me, it's also, if there are things that we could put in that would lower the maintenance costs. Maybe you pay an extra $200,000 up front, but you cut $20,000 a year off of your maintenance costs by doing that. This is kind of a throwing out there.
Actually, it's a pretty realistic number, yeah. Well, that's good to hear, because we were hoping you would like it.
Oh, I love it. I love the signs. You guys, I think those signs, to me, I don't know how the crowd feels, but I feel like those kind of really capture our city to a point. At least that's my feeling.
Well, good, thank you. Any other comments, or?
I have a question on the trees.
Yeah.
Is there gonna be a problem with your view as you head down the ramp to think about trying to merge?
There should not be there's still going to be several hundred feet when the trees stop before you get down there.
Okay,
At least, you're still going down the ramp, and then once you get down there, I think you've got another 400 feet before the merging ends on you. So there should not be. I mean, we would make sure we did, and we have to meet NDOT's sightline and obstruction zones and all those requirements, but we certainly wouldn't do that.
sometimes it's a drag race going down that ramp.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, we're going to hide the view so nobody knows what hit you when you go flying down there. You're going to be. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we move forward and get involved with NDOT, then we've got to meet all their rules, because I'm sure they still control most of the top two, not just the bottom part of this interchange, so the bridge and everything.
Are you open for suggestions?
No, we don't take those, you know that. We're always open for suggestions.
A tree and a paver is not going to tell a motorist what city that is, but a sign will.
Oh, I agree.
So if I were you folks, I would start with the signs.
I don't disagree at all. I mean, I guess that's my question to you, sir, is, is everybody satisfied with what's been presented
I am.
As far as the sign?
as far as the idea and the signs?
Yes.
Then do we kind of agree as a board that we'd like to see what the next step is?
Yes.
Yes.
Why don't you have this group tell you
That's where I was gonna go, because
fees to put these signs up?
that's, I guess, what would be our next thing is, what, the signs, I guess we'd have to, I guess, to me, I want the signs or what we're looking at for cost, because, again, I'm sure that our budget may not be able to afford it, and what our options are, because, again, I think this is something that we'd want to present to the city council as well, because I think they'd maybe either want to get in on it or at least have a voice on it since, you know, they appoint us and stuff, and the mayor does.
Yeah, well, part of our, you may not remember, part of our existing contract for this, I mean, this is not our final product. The master plan was to include fairly accurate cost opinions, if you will, for what we end up with. And that would include the design fees, construction costs, the traffic maintenance, you know, from a ballpark standpoint, at least as accurate as you can get. So that would, when the master plan's finished, then we should have those published fees and costs down there. So then that's the tool that moves forward, and that would be our final product at this phase. And we would have, you know, the design phase. And doing that, you know, we'd have to bring engineering firm in, which would probably be Transfer. Trent recommended us for this, so we'd definitely go to him first, unless you think he's been here too much, but, and that would be included.
I would ask, if I was you folks, I would ask this group, can you have something to them by the next meeting?
What he said.
Yeah, I mean, it was our intent to have this finished by the next meeting, for sure.
Yeah, that, I mean, that's what we'd really like, because like I said, again, I think this is something that will, I think about the Greenway and the other projects we're doing, I think this is just something that will help the city and help its image. And I think that's important. I think that'll add us,
Yeah.
I think this will add as much value as a new company coming here or a business on Main Street. As a matter of fact, I think this here will help get business on Main Street.
We agree. And we didn't mention, you know, phasing. I mean, any project like this, most communities do phase it,
Right.
and it wouldn't be all done at once. So, and we'll recommend, you know, what the phases should be, because,
Okay.
you know, planting the trees is very cheap and quick and easy,
Right.
but it's also a small piece of the budget, you know, so that'd be a little fee or phase item to itself. So, yeah. No, we'll be happy to do all that. We intended on trying to finish by the next meeting and have you a final back plan, so
Well, that'd be.
we'll go that direction. Okay, any other comment or questions? Yeah, Robert?
Possible to combine the concept of the pavers with the sign, because I noticed when you drive through Fisher's, I think it's 431, I'm not sure, they form with some of those pavers on their underpasses, the name of the street or the name of the city.
Yeah, I've seen that in Ohio, like Dayton.
I don't
It could become.
Yeah, and that's, you know, I didn't mention that, but you know, you could even spell out Beech Road on the pavers on the side.
That's what I'm asking, because.
Yeah, I
If you've been to Phoenix,
because there you
Arizona,
have both
you know.
the
I don't know what
signage
he's saying.
and you have
Where these
a low
pavers are,
maintenance,
make a beach grove within the
Yep.
pavers, like you'd have.
Be doing,
wider
you know,
pavers than
multi
you have
ways
the
like
darker
that. Like,
pavers.
I think, you know, Phoenix has done that, some other communities have done that. Of course, they get to use rock out there because it's desert, but nothing grows there anyway except the
Is
cactus.
this what he was talking about going across the interstate?
I don't,
Well,
I
it has to
asked him,
be.
I do not know.
These, I think, are what he's saying.
Those will be right here.
Right, right.
Yep.
This is just your train shed and your
Yep.
Kevin,
that we were using as a reference.
where was the intent for something like this? This big, is this, is if we,
Go ahead, talk about those two. And this is really not to the proper scale, this is kind of over-designed.
two?
Yeah, keep going. It's opportunity, go on there. Okay, go on there. These right here would be the big one, and then the small one would be on the previous page. It's
Scott?
Right, if we had that, would we need the sign around the
Well,
bridge?
to
I
me-
mean, that's just,
To me, it's the big one over just my opinion, the big one over the exit's too big, and it would take away from the sign over the highway. But I do like the idea of a smaller one.
Yeah, I do
with
too. I think
plantings in
that
the
looks
front of
great.
it, maybe the Beech Grove, some type of lighting on it. I like that as you come off the freeway, and then the big sign, I think that would look tough.
yeah, I think so too.
And that was the intent, that this would really read to the upper local
Yes.
traffic.
Yeah.
And this would be a replacement of the bridge sign, maybe, if you didn't want to really do a
Right.
bridge sign, so.
Cost-wise, this versus the bridge
You know, we
sign?
didn't cost that, but.
Okay, you don't have to
Bridge
tell me
is
now,
gonna be
but-
in the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be cheap.
I like that,
I
plus
do.
the bridge
I
sign.
do too.
We're
But,
kind
you
of
know,
all on the same
and if you
page.
wanna, you know,
I guess my
if you wanna
thought,
put your opinions together, send it to us. Or send it
we
to
can
us.
do that.
That would let us know where you finally kind of ended up with your collective opinions or the individual.
Yeah, because I guess my thought is, I'd be interested, like the little ones on the exits and the big signs, because the little ones on the exit, I'd be interested in those costs, because those are something we could probably do fairly quick, I think.
30,000.
Exactly. We could get those knocked out pretty quick.
Well, I think that'd be great.
Just because it's going to take a year or two just to get that approved and
Right.
everything. So,
So, I mean, that's what I'm saying is, I guess the price what we could do fairly quick versus what we
Right.
need longer. And I don't know if we can, I don't know if the government, if we can get grants or whatever to help with this, but like I said, I like this a lot.
I like both the concepts. I like the bridge sign.
Way.
Right.
And I like the smaller where he,
Well, which one do you, let me ask you guys this, again, I think we probably should get community input, but which ones of these styles do you like? These are the round ones and those are the square ones.
I actually liked any of those, to tell you the truth. And I was a pro round guy, but
That's-
we had to
that's-
look at the hex thing because that's what your bridge has. So
Right.
it's-
but we're gonna have that design here. Should they match? I mean,
Well, that was the intent, to really follow this whole.
Follow this,
This whole,
yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
to that, the backbone of the community was based on this.
Gotcha.
That's why that theme, and then that's when we were trying to emulate. And these are so preliminary, I mean.
Sure.
And see, I'm wondering what I bet these are more expensive than these for our signs. if I read it.
I wouldn't say that.
Okay, well then if you're not, then we'll keep it.
Same length and same height.
Right, well, we can
This
keep-
might be easier to install than that one, might
Right.
be the only difference.
Like I say, I think we definitely want to go forward.
I think they look great, Kevin. I
You
like
guys
all
did a
of it.
great job.
Thanks, appreciate
Great
it.
job.
Absolutely.
Do what we can do to get done, bring it to next meeting.
Outstanding.
Okay.
Great.
Second Thursday.
Next one.
Yeah, September, what is it, 10th or 11th?
I don't know, I'd have
Y'all
to.
gonna be here, right?
Oh, we'll be here.
We will too, thank you very much.
Well, thank you
Thank
very much,
you.
Kevin. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
Looks great. All of it.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
You bet.
Yeah. You want me to pack this?
See ya.
I thought that looked great.
We'll put it back where we found it.
Yeah, the back of my car.
Trent next.
I would guess.
Hurry, Trent, before they take your easels, since you have a better quality easel.
We'll bring better ones next time.
We trust you.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Trent Newport with Crossroad Engineers, and with me as well is one of my business partners, Mark Beck with Crossroad Engineers, and also Michael Crochelle with Schneider, who we have been teamed with on this project since the beginning, since we got engaged to study it and try to help get funding, which you were successful in getting, and now we're into the project. I know it's a painfully long process when you use federal money. You know, it seems like we ought to be able to build right away. But yet, it does take several years to get through the process. And so we're just trying to come every once in a while to an RDC meeting. We also did this at the council meeting on Monday to give an update of the project and kind of tell people where we're at in the process. We are kind of getting closer and closer to being able to unveil some stuff that's more detailed to the residents and some of the communities, certainly the ones that we're going through, as well as the RDC, City Council, and so forth. So just a quick synopsis to remind you, this project that's now called the Franciscan Trail starts up at 13th. Where Sarah Bolton Park is, and meanders through the park. This map here on the far your far right is pretty close to the same one that we started with down here. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. And so you can see where we start at Trailhead 5. We go through the park. We cross, in the park, we cross the road there, and then we go down along the side of the creek, along that west side of the creek. And all of that so far is in city-owned property, either the park or that strip of floodplain area that the city owns along the creek. We continue along until we cross right there, and then we stay on that side, and then we cross back. And again, that's still in that city-owned property. We are close to the subdivision there, but we are on city-owned property. That's going to be an area that I know we're going to focus on and try to do the best we can to be good neighbors to those people there. The difficulty of the other side of the creek there is, number one, it's not the city's property, but number two, it's a very, if you ever have been back there, it's a very steep slope. And so that's the difficulty of being on that side. So, so that's why we are there. We have the second bridge. We come to the west side. We're still on that city-owned property, and we kind of follow the creek along the west side. A lot of those areas, and I'll talk a little bit about this later, but they are in the flood, the floodway even. We're going to try to keep it out of the floodway, but if not, they're in a flood-prone area, let's say. So we have to make sure we do some things construction-wise to make it maintainable and to keep things in place. So then we cross again, and we cross over towards Carrington there, and we are along Charwood Parkway then, and that area has a platted right-of-way for the street that goes about to the back of the sidewalk, and then there is about a 20-foot wide strip of common area on the south and the west sides of that road. And we straddle that. So we're basically, what we're showing to do is take out the concrete sidewalk and replace it with our path. And so if we kind of use the back of the walk as the middle of our path, which keeps a green space on the east, or the east side of the path, the west side of the road, then we also, though, stay up on that grade. If you drive through there, once you kind of go past that area, that shelf where the road was built, it starts falling down into a wooded area and into the floodway. And so we want to try to keep as much of this project up out of the flood-prone areas as we can. So that
Question on that, because I do live in that subdivision. I don't want my neighbors killing me. Have they ever had any input? I mean, how do they feel? Because, I mean, you're talking about a trail right across the street from their houses and more traffic. Do they like the idea of it being there, or was there, say, sort of pushback that, why can't you back it? Because there is a lot of woods in the area back there. Why can't you back it, say, 10 feet off of the sidewalk and have a second trail?
Right.
I don't know if you've gotten any feedback from the folks there.
We haven't. We're kind of at that point where, and I mentioned this at the city council meeting on Monday, that, most of those annual HOA meetings are in the wintertime. And that's when we plan to go to those. It's not a big issue to move it design-wise. It is a bigger issue dollar-wise, construction, and it puts it down in an area that, again, is more flood-prone. We would have to clear some trees, so there are some impacts cost-wise and, I guess, maintenance-wise on it. And so, obviously, you can look at it two ways. You can look at it and say it's somewhere where, it's going to have some traffic on there that maybe I don't want to cross, or you can look at it another way and say, hey, that's great, I want to see activity and I can walk out and see it and get right on it, but we'll have to go through that. So
homeowners meeting, I think it's the second week in February, whatever, it's played in our thing, so you guys will have pros and cons, 'cause I guarantee you, there are, I think our board president, some of them live right across.
Yeah, actually Debbie is here, and she's the board president, and so yes, we've had some conversations about it, and so I do understand that there's some concern out there. I've told her that, and we've said at the meeting on Monday, we're not cast in stone yet. As I said, this is a long process. There's a part of the federal process, part of the lengthy part of it, is the environmental document. And we have to go through and vet through all the issues on a project that is this linear and hits, the federal process specifically protects certain areas even more than others. And those areas happen to be parks, neighborhoods, and any of those kind of features. And so we have to go through that process. We probably won't be through that process until next summer. And part of that process is reaching out to those people in a public forum and getting feedback and then documenting that. And that can change your design. Again, it's not a big deal for us to change that path down the hill design-wise. We're not going to come and say we have to change the fee for what we're doing, but it will have a pretty significant impact to your construction costs. So we'll work through those things, and this is kind of the start of that. I've been telling people that we're about 35% in the design process. And so we're not too late to make changes, but this is kind of the first step of us bringing it out to public meetings and start to look at going to HOAs. So we are in the HOA common area, like I just said, along that whole stretch. So what that means is we have to have their buy-in, right? We need to make sure that they are happy because we have to get, at minimum, an easement to be on their land right there, if not expand the right-of-way. So we cross 9th Street. We've talked about that being a flashing sign, kind of like we have in some of the other areas on 9th and Churchman and so forth. I think have been working well. And we have another trailhead down at the park there, and we kind of follow along the creek and the school property. And then we have another trailhead there where we will connect to 4th Avenue and another pedestrian bridge. And then from there on, we're going through private property all the way up to Emerson. Back through the wooded area is a landlocked piece of parcel that's owned by somebody that doesn't own other property up in the front in the commercial area. But then that roadway is private. It's private with easements that are associated with all the other Taco Bell and Skillman's in the back. I think they might be the ones that actually own it. But we will have to get permission from them. I've met with Skillman. I've met with the property owner in the wooded area. And so we've started to at least try to talk to some people about the concept of the project, and we'll continue that. And you can see the trailheads along there, in with Trailhead 1, which would be right there. There are pedestrian signal heads already at Emerson. And that end of the project will tee it up. I know we talked about it at the city council. I assume you want me to talk about phase 2 as well here. That the mayor has had some interest in submitting for phase 2 of this project at this next fall call at the MPO, and that would take it from Hornet there and go east. Yeah, I think that's, so it kind of go east along Hornet, somehow get either through here or through this area. Obviously, the school's master plan, I think what they told us is it's a moving target, it changes a lot. And so when we get to that point, we see what's the best plans that they have. But the bottom line is we're trying to get around the south end of the football field, around where they might have a future baseball, make a connection with a trailhead here to this neighborhood, and then find our way up through, probably up here on the top behind the softball diamond, and connect up to what you're seeing is being constructed now on Churchman. And so that would all, connect that together. The original phase project is 2.3 miles, and my guess is this is another mile or something like that. So just to refresh your memory on some of the cost, the construction estimate on the project, what's funded, and that's the estimate we're trying to design to, is $2.9 million. That means that you have that's the total, so you got 2.3 in federal money and 580 in local. 400 of that has been promised by St. Francis, and then you have your inspection dollars as well. But that amount that they've pledged is a huge portion of the local match. So it's a big project. I mean, there's not a lot of communities around Indianapolis that have a trail project of this magnitude, and then you really, I've never seen anybody come up with that kind of a magnitude in a pledge for a community either. And so you've got a couple big wins there. So we talked about schedule a little bit, just in that next year we're into environmental and more design. This winter we'll hit a lot of meetings, gather a lot of input. So sometime about a year from now, then we're going to know what our final design is. We're going to have worked through all those issues and have a good feeling of where we're at. Next fall, we've kind of finished the design basically, and then it's actually the end of 2019 where we actually complete everything per the NDOT schedule. Now, the mayor would like to be ahead of that in case monies can be available to build it early, but right now, the letting for the project is in July of 2020.
So are we ahead or behind or on schedule?
We're actually probably ahead of schedule.
We started early last year to get
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys started.
So our environmental, per the program schedule, is scheduled to be done in next August, a year from now, and we're hoping to have that done before then. And then also get out in front of it, of some of the right-of-way pieces that we have, like we have already. So I'd definitely say we're ahead of schedule.
Well, I mean, to the mayor's point, yeah, I'd like you guys to continue to be as aggressive and moving this forward, because if money does come, it'd be nice, the sooner we can get it in again, I think the better off we
Yeah.
are, especially, so if we're ready, so if everything's done and we're ready and it pops, boom, we can go
Yeah.
with it.
And I would say what we would do from here on is we would start to have some meetings late this year, early next year with some of the HOAs and different things, and then we would probably be coming back here on the heels of that to talk about, the results of some of those meetings. Certainly, all of you guys will be invited to those meetings as well, and hopefully can participate in them. So I'm going to let Michael talk about some of the features on these boards of the project.
Thank you. Maybe consider these a bit of a preview of what we're going to be taking out to show different folks as we start to, we'll talk about the route, we'll talk about where the path falls, and then we'll talk about some of these, the next layer, some of these details that get included in the design. And I'm going to email these to the group as well.
Thank you.
So you can have them, I know it's hard to see, but some of the things we'll talk about are signage along the trail, how we're going to mark access points, how we're going to, in a sense, brand the trail so that there's a unifying element. If you're driving on Emerson and you see a sign, later you're driving on 13th, you're going to see a similar sign, and your mind then says, oh, I can get from A to B. Now I realize where this path goes. We want to use a mile marker system on the trail for a couple of reasons. One, for exercise. If you're out using the trail, you're going to have a marker every quarter mile. So you know, I did 1.5 miles today, I did 3 miles today. Helps you keep track of that. It also has a public safety aspect to it, so that if there's an incident on the trail, you've turned an ankle, bike crashed into somebody, if there's a problem, and you're calling in, you're going to hopefully remember the last mile marker that you passed and be able to relate better where you are. If you're not along Jarnwood, for example, if you're back in the woods a little bit, it gives you some reference point. We'll be talking some about furnishings. There's going to be a few park benches, some trash containers, not stuff everywhere, but at the key trailhead points, we're going to have those pieces, and we'll talk a little bit about what they're going to look like. We're talking a bit about, well, we talk a lot about trail safety, but specifically whether we want to have call boxes out there or not. Call boxes are great when they work. Call boxes are disastrous if they don't work. We've seen that on the news in Indianapolis, and it can be embarrassing if they're not maintained right. So with the city, we're going to make sure we have those maintenance conversations before we commit to putting anything in. But there could be places where that's a useful tool to make users not only feel safer, but actually make them a bit safer. Another conversation we're having, we've got 4 pedestrian bridges along this route. Those are going to be designed to take a heavier load than just pedestrians, so that if maintenance folks need to get in there, they're hauling brush out, something breaks, and they choose to drive a pickup truck across it, we're going to design for that contingency, so there's no nasty surprise there. But there can be a lot of different shapes to these, typically steel truss pedestrian bridges. We'll present a couple different options. There will be some plantings on the project, not a tremendous number of trees or shrubs going in, because again, we're thinking maintenance, much like Kevin talked about earlier. But what we do plant, we're going to make sure it is good with your greenscape folks, as well as with DNR, who's going to be permitting our work down in the floodplain. We're going to make sure everything's good with them. I wanted to touch on this. Trent mentioned that there's a number of trailheads along the way. We've got them numbered 1 through 5, just in order along the path. I would put them on 2 tiers. At Sarah Bolton, number 4, and at Don Chalice Park, number 3. Yeah, 3 and 4. Those are the primary points where folks can access the trail and park their car. So if you don't live right close and you're coming from up at Albany and you want to come down to Sarah Bolton and park, or if you're coming from Thompson Road and you want to drive up, we're going to have some signage there that orients you. Here's a map of the trail, here's where you are, here's the distances, here are the rules of the road, so that get folks off on the right foot for those coming from a distance. The other 3, way up here at 13th, a couple more here at 4th and at Emerson, those are points where folks are going to access the trail, but they're accessing on foot or on bicycle. So those are what I would consider a second tier. We don't invest as much money there, we don't share quite as much information, but it's still a point where the trail is visible, where folks are going to access the project and use it.
Has anyone considered, being up there in the business area, that people try to use the parking lots of Taco Bell and the bank and all that
They may.
to get on it?
Yeah.
So has there been a concern with that, with the businesses?
That's something that's hard to design for. What I would say is if someone were to park at Taco Bell and use the trail, they're going to quickly realize that there's a better place down here at the park, where there's restrooms available, or there's bike racks, or the playground, a parking lot. I would hope that the second time around, they realize there's a better option for them. The future better option going east is going to be over here. The Hornet Center would be another good option for phase 2, but yes, it could happen. I guess we would have to have some conversations.
And the other, and I might have missed it, but lighting, is there going to be lighting?
That's not in the design right now, to light the trail. The trails like this in most communities around the area are open dawn to dusk, just like the parks are.
Okay.
Put lights out there, I think you're inviting people after hours. Conversation happens on every project. We often look into the cost of lighting, and that often kills the conversation pretty quickly. But the thought is, if you want to have the same enforceable hours that you do in the parks at both ends, you don't light the whole stretch of the trail.
Okay.
I guess one question I do have, because you mentioned it, is parking capacity at Chalice and Sarah Bolton Park. Does the project look at that? I mean, because you guys know what numbers are on different trails. And the reason I'm asking is the park has different functions going on, whether it be in the spring high school baseball games or even the basketball games, is do we have adequate parking to deal with the anticipated number, say, that might be there? Or is that something we'd maybe need to look at as well, increasing the capacity of parking at both those parks?
It's not something that we've looked at. My concern with putting in the project is that, it's going to take away from the budget from something else.
Right.
The project funding that you received was based on what we are looking at, so.
Is that something that we
Maybe
should
something
look?
you wait and see if it's an issue.
Right.
Before you do something and spend money that.
I don't want to spend money on it, but I guess what I'm
Yeah.
saying is it's something that we should maybe, say we get to 2020 or 21, is it something that we definitely should have on our radar as if this trail turns popular, we need to have a contingency to add
Be a good
20%
problem
more
to have.
parking?
Yeah, an extra row of 10 or 12 spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can know the cost ahead of time, and we've thought
Yeah,
through
that was my thought more or less. Not that we need to put it now, but it's just,
That's a good point, because I can see Chalice Park.
Yeah.
Chalice Park's very
It would be
limited.
the main problem. I mean, you hardly, when they have a, reunion,
Oh, yeah.
that parking's gone.
Well,
You
for a
got that
special
road that
event,
goes
I-
around back, you could definitely add, you could smooth and grade it and add some parking there, but, like I say, if you have a family reunion on Saturday and you're going down there to walk that trail, that parking lot's packed and,
And maybe the school becomes an option at that point. I don't know how.
and then
those
again, what
slots-
I would worry, being in Carrington, and what I could see homeowners saying is, well, I got people parking in front of my house and going over to the trail. So then, all of a sudden, they start going to the mayor and complaining to him that, why do I have strangers' cars out in front of my house? And then the people who do park out in front of there, all of a sudden, they're faced with no parking signs on each side to eliminate one problem and create another. So, I mean, that's why I asked those questions. Those are things I see coming down the road.
These are the things we often hear when we go to these HOA meetings and start talking to a diverse group of folks, is folks are gonna bring up questions that we haven't dug into yet.
Right.
It'll prompt us to do that.
Well, I'd say that'd be one that you'll definitely hear when you hit our HOA.
That's a good heads up.
I have a question on signage and trailhead. Is Franciscan Alliance going to require any signage or maybe partial trailhead or smaller trailhead at the old hospital site?
Yes.
We've talked about that a little bit.
But, yeah,
that gonna be included in
a separate project, separate project at the hospital site. We don't go to the hospital.
Oh, you do not?
But our trail will have signage.
So it won't connect to
It will, but it'll be treated separately. It won't be part of
this phase.
Right.
The funding won't be included. as-
Right.
I mean,
Right, it's not
the
part of this project.
Franciscans' offer to fund is not contingent upon including.
No.
No.
Okay.
That was really
Yeah.
what I wanted to know.
The dollars that fund the project we're talking about tonight will get us up to the corner of Sarah Bolton at 13th by the
Okay.
funeral home.
Yeah, I just.
Stop right
yeah,
there.
I didn't know whether there was a contingency on it.
I'll give it back to you.
So just a couple things, just to remind you on the section, it's a 12-foot wide asphalt path with 2-foot shoulders on either side, gravel shoulders. And I think Michael might have mentioned that the bridges will be built for emergency vehicles. The path is as well. Mostly it's built for pedestrian traffic, but we built a standard section that will allow a vehicle to get in and out when necessary. This is a section that kind of shows this, and this would be maybe through the area where the creek is there, and we might have walls on one side due to the grade. We could have wood railing on the other side due to the area that goes down to the creek. We've got articulated mat, which is these pictures, which is basically kind of cinder blocks that are tied together with cable that then you put dirt in and grass grows on it, but it looks like grass. It looks like this at the end of the day, but it's not. It's got that base in there to hold it from being eroded. It's actually exactly what we used on your bridge for Sarah Bolton Park that's up there on the wall. It's performed very well through some bad floods we've had since then. So that might be something that we use to protect this side, because portions of the path are going to get flooded. It's in an area that is flood prone, so there are portions that are, and back to kind of some of the areas that are next to the flood prone areas, we want to get those up out of them. And so again, we want to work with the HOAs as much as we can to try to do to talk with them through what we're thinking on the project. So I think that's about it for our presentation, but I'd be happy to take any more questions. And
I had one more, sorry. Those stakes you put in along Charnwood, how long are those going to stay?
a couple weeks. We're trying to get out. The reason we put those out there is so that we can walk out and take a look at the alignment.
Right, I understand that.
And shift things. We also had a meeting with NDOT and all the utilities, and one of our meetings that we have to have as part of the process that's what they were staked right before that meeting, but we're trying to get out and walk all the area,
Right.
make some adjustments. I'd say a couple more weeks.
It doesn't bother me. I mean, it just adds excitement to the fact that it's coming, but
Yeah.
I don't want people getting their hopes up thinking that, well, they staked it, this fall they're laying asphalt or
Yeah.
something.
We know those stakes walk away pretty fast, so
A couple of them
Yeah.
have.
we've done some
Yeah.
already.
I say, I watched a little boy go on there yesterday.
Take one? Yeah.
One,
Oh, take them all?
he had a half a dozen in
Well,
his pocket.
yeah, that happens, so.
He was only about that tall, but
Yeah.
he could pull them up real easy.
Anything else at this point?
No, I think you guys are doing great. Just keep up the good work and keep pushing as hard as you can. Like I say, to the mayor's point, if we can get in early, let's get in early.
Yeah, the next thing you'll hear from us is on our effort to get some information for when the HOA meetings are, all the various ones that we're going, around, that we can try to hit those, and then you will be invited to those as well as the city.
you know, and try to get those scheduled,
Right.
because those are part of our process that we have to have, so.
And if you need us to hold a meeting for this or something like that, just let us know. We'll do anything we can to help.
Yeah, we might actually couple it with one of your meetings if, you know, it's up to you, really.
Well, no, if you guys want that, just contact us and we'll build it in. We'll try to get the word out
Okay.
and stuff like that. Anything we can do to help too. I mean,
Yeah.
we voted for this and we're excited about it too. So anything we can do to push it along,
Okay.
keep pushing.
Would you like to ask some questions while you're here, or do you want to do those? I mean, I've offered to Debbie to come and have a one-on-one meeting, so, but if you want to voice those
I'm
here.
just looking at, I'm really concerned about crossing 9th Street
Mhm.
there at Charnwood. That's a scary, scary intersection.
Yeah,
I pull out of that addition every day, as does Don. And it needs as in the world to do. I can't see people walking across the street there, and I dare let one of my children or grandchildren cross the street there.
yeah. Well, and I guess all I would say is that if you ever spend any time out on Churchman, where the school's on the south side of Churchman and on the north side is the apartments and then the housing
Yep.
down to the east, that is an equally scary area with a lot more truck traffic and faster. And those were the same concerns there. And from what I understand, that crossing has been a great success that we put up there. And so those lights are big, they're in your face, and it does take a little getting used to, but I mean, that is a great example of an unsafe situation that has been much improved by the same signs that we're talking about here.
Okay.
You want to slow them down, just put a policeman sitting there at the park and you'll see people slow down, stop and do all that.
You know,
It's amazing what a cop sitting there will do to people's behavior.
It doesn't seem to faze the drivers on Charnwood Parkway, though.
Well,
I don't know, I always come to a
Yes.
complete stop when I see a cop. Now, at 5 in the morning, I'm not
They're
gonna
probably
claim
driving
that, but-
slower on 9th because coming out of the school zone than they are
Are
on
you
Charnwood.
kidding?
Than on Charnwood, I'm saying. They're probably
Are you
driving.
kidding?
Well, I don't know, but I would imagine they're driving faster on Charnwood than,
No. I about got run over there this morning.
on which one?
On 9th Street.
On 9th, okay.
Pulling off at Charnwood onto 9th Street.
Yeah.
But they were flying down through there
Yeah,
at 8:15.
yeah, and,
I mean,
you know,
well, school doesn't start till 8:30. That school doesn't.
we've had a lot of success. We've put those in, and I want to say 3 or 4 other locations as well where there was issues. Down at Center Grove, there was a kid that got hit in an area down there on Stones Crossing, and that one's been very effective. So, and it's not just the signs. You're going to do some other things to kind of make the
Okay.
driver aware.
That's-
You know,
okay.
and so those are things that we'll definitely be looking at.
Signage and the lights will alter behavior too. I mean, if it's flashing and there's a warning, people will alter the behavior for it. I mean, they do. You see it when you're driving, you know. I mean, when you, especially if you know you're coming into.
Just like the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit we have down Charnwood.
My reference point, I think about 96th Street or 106 where the Monon crosses.
Right.
Heading up
Yes.
into Carmel. Those are fast, busy streets.
And my neighbor just got hit by a car crossing there.
The trail is busy enough that when I drive through there,
Uh-huh.
even though I don't have to stop, I'm still backing off because I'm half expecting somebody to maybe not stop.
Yeah.
That's
This
reasonable.
trail gets more
Car
use.
hit him on a
Yeah,
bicycle.
It happens. As the trail gets more use, the drivers get more used to seeing people crossing,
Mhm.
and that has a good impact as well.
Okay.
Are speed bumps possible?
No. It's a good idea. Speed bumps cause more problems for snow removal and what have you like that. And they don't solve as much problem as
Right.
is anticipated.
It's speed bumps are a tough discussion, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll be working through a lot of those things. I assume that's your board meeting's in February.
Well, it's gonna be March this year.
Okay. So we might have to, you know, some of those we don't want to wait that long because of our process. We have to hit certain deadlines. So we may have to have some of
If we
these
have to
where we.
call a special meeting,
where we
that's
try
no
to,
big deal.
yeah, and maybe that's a
Yeah.
good thing because I think it would be, if we can, you know, the key is get a good turnout so that we can hear what the issues are and work
Okay.
to address those. So we'll work with Debbie, and there's 3 or 4 other neighborhoods that are surrounding here that that'll be the next action you see from us. Okay?
Very nice. Thank you,
Thank you.
Trent.
All right,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you very much.
You want to say anything, Mr. Mayor?
Are you doing, stay for a minute?
Yeah.
Did you want to do that resolution, Bob?
Feel free.
Okay. You should have a resolution up there. It's an MOU between the City of Beech Grove and the Redevelopment Commission to pay for the construction of the greenway. There's three, they're the exact same thing, and it just says that NDOT's gonna pay so much, the City of Beech Grove is gonna pay so much, Franciscan is gonna pay so much, and the RDC is gonna pay so much. There's figures up here, but the figures could change, so we sufficed it by saying 50%. So I don't know if you want to read it into the record or read it aloud or however you want to do.
Do we need to make a motion to have it entered as title only? Is that how? I want to make sure we don't have somebody calling us, but so.
Do that, or if you want me to read it, I can read it.
I think we probably need to read it because it's too short.
It's pretty short, I could.
Yeah, it's too short.
It doesn't matter. You want me to read it? Okay, this is Resolution Number 12, 2017. It is a memorandum of understanding. This memorandum of understanding, quotations MOU, is between the City of Beech Grove and the Redevelopment Commission, RDC. The MOU sets forth an understanding that the city and the RDC as it pertains to the payment and construction of the Greenway project. Whereas on July 24th, the city's Board of Works and Safety entered into a project coordination agreement, or contract/agreement, with the Indiana Department of Transportation for construction of the Greenway project. Whereas the total cost of the Greenway project is $2,640,000. Whereas pursuant to the agreement, NDOT agrees to pay 80% of the project, or $2,112,000. Whereas the city will pay the remaining 20% of the Greenway cost project, or $528,000. Whereas Franciscan Alliance has agreed to donate $400,000 for the cost of the Greenway project, whereas the remaining cost of the Greenway project to be paid by the city is $128,000, whereas the RDC has agreed to pay 50% of the remaining cost for the construction of the Greenway project, or $64,000. Whereas the city will likewise pay $64,000 for the Greenway project, and whereas the parties agree that construction of the Greenway project is in the best interest of the citizens of the city. Now therefore be it resolved that the city shall pay $64,000 for the construction of the Greenway project, and now therefore be it further resolved that the RDC shall pay $64,000 for the construction of the Greenway project. Any questions or concerns?
No?
Okay, because let's say we have voted for this project several times. Last year, as a matter of fact, the RDC went ahead and allowed up to $30,000 to be spent so that Trent and them could move ahead and try to get ahead of the game on the environmental aspects of this. So if nobody has any questions and everybody's good with it, I would ask for a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then I'd ask, if I can borrow your pen, Ron, I'd ask each member to sign and date this. And is this coming out this year, Mr. Mayor, or next year, or over time?
What's that?
64,000.
No, that will not come out until the project lasts July of 2020. We will get an invoice 7 weeks before July 1st, 2020, whatever that is. And we will get one invoice, and it will be 500 and some odd thousand.
So I guess my question is, since we're approving this today, all of us may not be on the 2020 redevelopment.
That's
Commission.
why you enter into an agreement.
Well, I was gonna say, do we need to put that money aside, or should we put it aside now?
You should encumber it.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, thank you.
there you go.
That's why I'm asking, because I mean,
And I'm getting ready to do the same thing with Franciscan. We're getting ready to meet so they can start the process till.
you don't have to, again, I guess, because I don't have to work on a budget till, I think, the September, October meeting for the city council. If we know by then, we can put it into our budget, but I don't think it's a bad idea to make sure that money is there, because the reason the Greenway failed last time is because the money went away, so.
The way I look at it is, this group is going to pay $64,000. It might be, the numbers might fluctuate.
Right.
you're gonna pay this amount, you're gonna get over $2 million in construction.
Oh, trust me, you're preaching to the choir. I mean, I'm up there in the pew saying amen. I'm with you. I mean, it's a great deal for the city. Very
There's
excited
supposed to be a
about it.
third copy to sign.
You may want to encumber a little more than that when you do your budget. In case-
Well, I mean, I'm hoping too, if I look at the budget, maybe we do, if we have money left over this year, we try to cover the whole thing this year, and if not, we split it, but, you know, to where this year and next year, we definitely cover all of it, and it's set off to the side, and whatever Dan has to do to protect it, but it sits there and it's safe there. I mean, that's just my thing. I want to make sure that if something happens, that the money's still there for it.
Robert, didn't you say there were 3 copies for us to sign?
Supposed to be 3 copies.
There's one there.
There.
Are those two ready?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
This one is for us to keep.
Give it to Robert.
I think he just got one.
Dan, get a copy, get a photocopy.
Yeah, they're signing his now.
That one, okay.
Yeah, this is a big move. A lot of exciting stuff tonight. I'll be honest with you, I came here thinking, well, we're not gonna have a lot going on, and it's kind of like a movie, you don't expect much out of it. It turns out to be a lot better than you thought.
Well, it is a movie, Tom.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all stars.
I'm just excited about all the stuff we got going on. You almost feel a momentum starting to build.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jay.
Uh-huh.
And, the Churchman Sidewalk project is starting back up again Monday. It's been on hold because AT&T had to go in and move all of their service lines. So it held the project up for about 3 weeks. So Monday, they will begin the remainder of the project, and a couple more months, they'll be done. The roundabout project at Arlington and Churchman is another NDOT project. It's coming up before the Greenway, but at the last quarter meeting, NDOT has approached the city and the MPO about moving that project up a year. So we're going to probably do that. It doesn't change anything financially for the city, but it is a very important project, so that we'll probably do that. And if we do that with NDOT, that will put us in line to move the Greenway project up a year.
Are there any more thoughts to more roundabouts? I guess
Yes.
like Ninth and Thompson would be an ideal one, possibly.
Not there. We're looking at a roundabout at the intersection right off the interstate where you turn into the Lowe's, that intersection, right there.
That'd be interesting.
Where? Turn it
The
away.
Lowe's and the Lowe's Speedway. I saw an article where they talk and like roundabouts, what is it, they save like 24,000 gallons of gasoline a year by people just going through and not waiting. And the other thing-
And the reason for it is that intersection now is one of the 50 most dangerous intersections in central Indiana.
Right.
So when NDOT classified it as that, now it's eligible for immediate funding. So we're looking at that now to change that to a roundabout. Plus, We're also looking at 25th and Perkins, 25th and Churchman, that area. We're looking at for a roundabout there as well.
The triangle kind of is. That'd be good.
Where that nursing home is, Golden Living.
Yes, right there. That is a dangerous intersection.
Yeah.
Crossing that one.
Anyway, St. Francis is coming along well. If you track it, they're in the tower now, they're up on the roof. The roof's gone, now they're down to the 10th floor. And then when they get down to the 6th floor, then they'll be able to reach it from the ground. So that project's going on. We're doing there's a lot of water main work being done on North 7th. They're about to wrap that up. On North 18th, then on Main Street from 18th to 25th, that's going on. And then they're going to move over on 20th Street from Churchman to Southern. All of those water mains will be replaced by the end of the year. We just finished a drainage project on Gilbert and Tyson and on North 3rd. Those drainage issues have been around for over 40 years, and they're correct now. And then we're over in Smoke Tree, South Grove Woods, doing a project in the easement up against the interstate. So those are going on. Safeway has a opening ceremony a week from tomorrow at 9 a.m. And then in the front there, on Albany, we've put cement benches there, and we're getting ready to put some big flower pots there to beautify that area. And then if you drive past there, you'll notice that the sidewalk's gone on 18th because they're putting in new water mains. So when they put the sidewalk back, they're going to put in tree boxes for us. So on 18th Street, we'll put benches in there, and then we'll also plant trees in that sidewalk to beautify that area.
That'd be nice.
So, yeah, we're going to try to uplift that area, and so we're looking forward to that. And then the next major project we're getting ready to bid on is in the area of North Bend and Redfern, in that area. They have a really, really bad drainage problem, and it's been around forever. It's been around for over 40 years, and we're going to correct that problem. So that'll come up here probably this fall. So all that comes in your sewer bill. You see the stormwater fee, $3. All of these repairs are paid for as we go out of that fund. So we're doing pretty good. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Donald, Trent needs to, the numbers aren't quite right on the resolution that you just.
They said, that I told them that the numbers are subject to change.
But
This is this number here is the federal share,
Mhm.
not the total
Mhm.
amount, so it changes.
Yeah, but ours should be this here. That's our share. And then they pay or 50%.
Trent thinks it's double in terms of our shares of 112 each.
No, I don't.
If it is, we can fix it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're
Because it says in the resolution or 50%,
Right.
Yeah,
whatever that is.
yeah, so we can.
Yeah,
We
that's
can
not an
revisit
issue.
it next meeting.
I mean, I'll bring it this way, well, I don't,
If we need to.
that's why I say, if I put 64,000 away now, and we get to 2020, it turns out that it's 120,000, well, that RDC only has to come up with 60,000 of it, they don't have to come up with 120,000, because.
If the federal share on that agreement is 2.64 million, 20% of that is 528,000.
Yeah, I agree with you. Right.
Trent says the federal share is 211 something.
No, the federal share is the 2.64.
So our 20% is, on top of that, is 500 and some odd thousand.
We can look at it.
Yeah,
If
so,
we need to, we can revisit it.
Right, I'm not
Yeah.
worried about it,
No.
we'll make sure it's right.
that's it. Any questions?
No, sir, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure,
One short issue,
as long as it's a short one.
it is.
I've handed out, and we don't need to discuss it all at this meeting, but I've handed out from Greenwood examples of what they use when business prospects approach the city or their RDCs for assistance. And there's sort of an application, there are criteria for assistance, and I think there may be one other document in there. But if you could just take those home as sort of homework and review those, and then maybe we can set a meeting at another time, and I would suggest a working session, maybe on a Saturday, and maybe even invite someone from one of the cities that has experience with using criteria and application forms, so that if there are requests for assistance, that there is an approach that's fair to whatever party happens to express interest. And but that's just one example, and I understand Kathy is collecting other examples.
Tell them about it, yeah. I never heard back from Southport. I had sent them a message.
Right.
However, I did speak to a really great guy from Speedway. He served on the RDC for 10 years. He does things for them, but he's not a voting member. And I told him what we were looking for, and he said he would be more than happy to sit down with us and talk to us about criteria that they use. But I haven't gotten back with him. I told him I'd talk to you about it at this meeting. But he said he would be happy.
I mean, it's something we've talked about doing for, about 3 years now?
Right, we really do need to have that. We should have had it by now, but we haven't, but,
I mean, we've been lucky, is really no one's come to us asking for money.
oh, they will. They have, and they will
And they're met
again.
with cynicism and despair, and they walk away.
But, yeah, but he knew exactly what I was talking about, and I said, well, do you have something you could share with me, fax it over or whatever? He said, not really. He said, they really don't, but he would be happy to help us, so.
But do read that carefully, and it's a starting point.
Well,
Oh, yeah, I'll look at it.
what I might do is read it over and maybe fax it over to him
Yeah.
and see his opinion of it and what he would add or delete. I'll do that,
Or how their approach, even if it's not in.
yes, yes.
Differs.
Okay, I guess the only thing I would ask you guys to start thinking about is in September, we gotta start thinking about our budget for next year and what we will propose to the city council as far as we wanna spend. Like I say, I haven't looked at the numbers of what we actually, because we freed up a little bit of money, we got a little bit extra money coming in from Beech Grove Station, so.
Right.
But I guess my thought is if we could make sure that we push that 64 aside. I don't want to do that to the detriment of, say, this new project, where if we could spend 30,000 on it and get those signs right away or something like
That'd
that.
be
we do
great.
that. But it just
Wouldn't that look
have
nice?
some thoughts on that for the next meeting. Like I say, you guys have been here long enough, I think, so, but I'll open it up to you guys for any thoughts or comments. Anything from the audience? If not, I would ask for one motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make said motion.
Second?
Second.
The meeting is adjourned at 8:40 or 20:40 hours. Thank you, have a wonderful day, night, and we will see you in